Welcome back. You are watching Insight. We're here right now with Heather Foster from Foster Financial, always bringing us this great conversations about finances. Heather, it's a pleasure to have you back here.
Always good to be here.
Yeah, well, look, today we're talking about something that I didn't even think about, the passing down of land.
Yes.
So this one is really for our farmers, those in agriculture. So
Yeah.
listen up if that's you. The passing down of land, sometimes that can kind of get a little mixed up, huh? Trying to figure out what to do.
Well, there's multi-layers, I would say, on it. For one, you know, when you inherit something that is land, you get a stepped-up cost basis. So generally speaking, if you're inheriting a hard asset like land, you're not going to have to pay taxes. Your family members aren't going to have to pay taxes because you get a stepped-up cost basis. So your new cost basis becomes the current value of that land.
Yeah.
The problem becomes is when people are kind of blind to the value of the land at this point. I talked to many people who are going, okay, they're going, you know, basically saying my land is worth $2,000 an acre to $4,000 an acre. Because Indiana, for example, says, hey, we're going to base your property taxes based on an agricultural use number, and it's about $1,900 an acre.
Okay.
But that's to keep you guys here and farming and keep your property taxes low. The federal government, on the other hand, says, we'll give you an exclusion. There's a tax code called 2032A in the IRS code that says that farmers can basically use a different calculation for the price of their land and say that it's for agricultural use. There's some rules involved. Basically, you have to farm it for, you know, 5 of the last 8 years. Whoever inherits it has to continue that farm for another 10 years. But the exclusion on that is only around 1.1 million. So when people come to me and they've got thousands of acres, and if you were to say, okay, well, but I can use that deduction on some of my land, typically only about 200 acres of it, in fact, the rest of it's going to be fair market value. So you may start to get yourself into the federal estate tax, which right now is really high. It's about $12.8 million per person, so it's really large, but that is set to sunset at the end of 2025. We're not sure if it will. It's legislation risk there, but right now, if they don't change it, it is going to sunset. So in 2026, that exemption is going to get cut in half. And so those people who have, you know, if you got more than 500 acres that you're farming and that you own, you may be getting up into that federal estate tax. And therefore, do you have a plan in place? You know, we were talking earlier, you know, you have these generation that's been doing this for a long time. They probably have put together trust. They've put together life insurance to help pay if someone does get into the federal estate tax. But if you are a second generation, third generation, fourth, fifth, sixth generation farmer, and you are set to potentially at some point inherit a lot of farmland, you need to do your own planning. You've got to start setting this stuff up to make sure that if you're going to get into the federal estate tax, that you're not having to sell shares of that farm, you know, pieces of that land to pay the taxes that might be due if somebody passes away. So, and it's really a matter of not if, it's a matter of when with everything, right? So it's extremely important that, one, the legal documents get set up correctly.
Yes.
Do you want your kids to, one child maybe is a part of the farm, maybe the other two are not? In this situation, most people say, but I'm going to leave it to the 3 of them. But can the one that's inheriting that farm afford to pay fair market value per acre towards the kids that don't want to farm it? Because prices have gone up so much, many times they can't afford it. Therefore, your farm's going to get sold off. So if you want to keep that farm in the family, it is important that you get legal documents done with an attorney. Maybe you set a cap on the price per acre so that the one can buy out the other ones, and it's a capped price per acre. There's many tools that people can utilize, but it is something you got to think about. Here's the thing with farmers. They're out there working the fields, okay? They are hardworking people. This isn't something they necessarily focus on, going in and talking to attorneys and financial advisors. They're just out there, everyday people, working hard. So what we're trying to say is make sure that at some point you make time to work with the professionals so that we can ensure that that farm stays in the family. Because you don't want to be in a situation where the one son that's farming that land isn't able to buy out the other 2 siblings, and you definitely don't want to be in a scenario where, because you got into federal estate tax, you're now forced to sell off some of the land in order just to pay the taxes. So you want to keep it in the family. You want to have constraints or rules that says, I want to make sure this stays in the family. I don't want people to be able to sell this. You can do all that through a lot of legal documents.
Yeah, and it's important, like you said, to be able to do that planning. They're out there working hard. They're out there in the field, so this might not be the first thing that's top of mind, but it's important to have these conversations, like you said, especially if there are multiple kids and things like that involved,
And
right?
they can avoid things like probate if they do their legal documents correctly, and they set up a trust or a will, or they do a transfer on death deed. So there's a lot of things. Make sure again, I think the older generation has done a lot of this planning. It's the next generation that's about to inherit these farms that hasn't actually taken the time to do it because they actually didn't necessarily realize how big of an estate farmland really is and how big of an asset it is, because they're just out there working and they're looking at it from the income perspective.
Right.
The income on a farm maybe doesn't produce, you know, it's not creating all this wealth as far as income is concerned. It's the asset value of the land. And most farmers will tell you they don't look at the asset value. It's just a piece of paper. It's a number that sits to the side. But the government will look at it.
They will definitely look at it, so that makes it really, really important. Thank you so much, Heather, for being here with us. Everyone, take a look at your screen right now. Find out more information about Foster Financial. We'll be right back.